Let's get right into it. We're talking about one of Japan's most baffling, most bizarre, unsolved cases ever.
And this is the central question, the paradox we're going to re-examine today. It's a question that has stumped investigators and, internet sleuths for decades.
So picture this. We're in a quiet mountain village called Miyakoji in Fukushima. It's February 28th, 1989, and it's a piercingly cold winter. Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. We're going to break it down section by section, just like a real investigation, to see what clues we can maybe uncover.
All right, section 1. This is where it all kicks off, the discovery. And let me tell you, how this all started is just as strange as the rest of the case. So, here's what happened. You've got this 23-year-old teacher, right? She's just coming back to her dormitory after being away for a long weekend. She goes to use the toilet. It's one of those old school squat toilets. And she looks down into the pit and sees something, a shoe. I mean, how weird is that? So obviously freaked out, she runs outside to check the outdoor access point for the septic tank, and that's when she sees it, a human leg. She screams, calls for help, and that's when her colleagues and the local police from the Miharu station get involved. So who was this man found in such a horrifying, unbelievable situation? Well, it turns out he wasn't some stranger. He was a local guy, someone everyone in the village knew. And this is what makes it so jarring. The victim was Naoki Kano. He was just 26, a sales manager for a company that worked with the Fukushima nuclear plant. By all accounts, this guy was the model citizen, sociable, reliable, active in the community. He was even an MC at weddings, just a promising young man. The idea that he'd be involved in something sordid, it just didn't compute for anyone who knew him.
And here's where things get even weirder. The body was found topless. Remember, this is the middle of a freezing February winter with snow on the ground. But he wasn't just shirtless. He was found hugging his own shirt, which was neatly folded against his chest. And he was barefoot. None of it makes any sense.
Okay, so you've got this impossible situation, right? Let's take a look at how the police, the authorities, officially tried to explain it.
So, the police wrapped it up pretty quickly. They called it an accidental death. Their conclusion? That Naoki Kano died accidentally while trying to peep on the female teacher. The official cause of death was listed as hypothermia and something called thoracic circulation disorder, which basically means his circulation failed from being crushed in that tight space. Case closed.
But the community, they were not having it. They were outraged. They just could not believe that this well-respected young man would do something like that. They got together and collected almost 4,300 signatures on a petition demanding the police reopen the case as a homicide investigation. But the police, they just rejected it. And this is where that official story really starts to crumble. When you just look at the simple logic and the physical evidence, it all falls apart.
Okay, first let's talk about basic physics. The pipe's opening, the only way he could have possibly gotten in, was just 14 inches across. That's 36 centimeters. Now, an average Japanese man of his age and size has a shoulder width of about 16 inches, or 40 centimeters. You see the problem here, right? The math just doesn't work. How does a man with 16-inch shoulders get through a 14-inch pipe? And let's say, somehow, he managed to dislocate his shoulders or something. You would expect to see major injuries, right? Serious abrasions, broken bones maybe? But the body only had minor scratches on the elbows and knees. It's just not consistent with a desperate struggle to get into such a tight space. And then there's the timeline, which completely blows up the whole voyeurism theory. Naoki disappears on February 24th. The teacher had already left for her hometown for a long weekend. The coroner estimated he died on the 26th. She didn't get back until the 28th. So the police want us to believe he got into this pipe to peep on a woman he knew wasn't even there, and then died 2 days before she was due to return. It makes absolutely no sense. So, if we throw out the accident theory, what are we left with? Well, that's when things get a lot darker, with several competing theories. And people have been speculating for decades. The theories range from some kind of personal grudge all the way up to major conspiracies involving local politics and even his job at the nuclear plant.
So, let's look at these angles. Could he have been silenced? I mean, think about it. Just 10 days before he died, he was a really prominent speaker in this heated village election that was all about the pros and cons of the nuclear plant. Then, you find out that a month before that, there was some kind of incident at the very plant his company worked with, and a colleague of his committed suicide shortly after.
The timing is, it's more than a little suspicious, don't you think?
Okay, now this is really important. To really get to the bottom of this, we have to do a little bit of myth busting. Some of the key details you might read online are actually wrong, according to the original reporting from back in 1989. And by correcting the record, we can start to see this case from a whole new angle.
And this is a game changer. The popular internet version of the story often says the teacher found the shoe and bravely opened the heavy septic lid herself. But that's not what the 1989 reports say. They say she went outside and found the lid was already open. Think about what that implies. An open septic tank in the middle of winter doesn't exactly scream accident. It points to something much more deliberate.
But despite all of this, the impossible physics, the nonsensical timeline, the open septic lid, the official conclusion has never, ever changed. The police stood by their accidental death ruling, and because no new evidence ever came to light, the case is now officially closed. The statute of limitations has run out.
So what's the big takeaway here? I think this case is just a stark reminder that you have to question the official story, especially when the basic facts just don't add up. The physical impossibility of it, the timeline that makes no sense, the victim's own character, it all just screams that something is wrong with the police's conclusion.
And we may never truly know what happened. Was this just a tragic, bizarre accident born from some secret shame? Or was Naoyuki Kano murdered, silenced, and his body placed in the most degrading, humiliating way possible as a message to others? That's the haunting question that still hangs over that quiet village in Fukushima. A tragic accident or a perfectly executed crime?